Alright, so my name is Arthur. I work at Ravenpack. Ravenpack converts raw text into structured data, mainly for the financial industry. As part of that, knowing when something's happened or will happen is obviously relevant. So we have a time and date extraction system. It's called the period system. This is an example of a period. We have some sort of category of periods, a pattern that matches some text, and an extractor which has quite Lisp code in it. And then we get stuff like the time spans involved and so on. And the way this used to work was that the non-developer team members would identify various texts that didn't match optimally or at all. Then they would make requests that the developers added this and this behavior to it. Developers, depending on availability and so on, would eventually get around to it. Not a good workflow. Slow feedback cycle. The editors are the ones that make the whole decision of behavior. Why shouldn't they be able to specify it themselves? So, solution, make a DSL with requisite tooling, obviously. And this way, they can just handle it themselves. There's no feedback cycle involved beyond the immediate, since they have the tools. And it avoids the obvious problems mentioned. Here's the UI, as it is currently. Category, pattern, extractor, debug feedback field, various operations on the database patterns. Development was basically we did on some other stuff regarding improving processes, and non-developers came and said, hey, why can't we do this for the period stuff? Alright, made a spec last spring. We'll show a snippet of that later. Last summer, implemented most of the actual DSL, and then it's just been fiddling with the UI and databases and so on. So there's some sort of lesson there. So we have some assorted user-friendly sanity checks going on in a debugging, multiple forms, checking that stuff actually exists in the DSL. It's a snippet of the spec, very classical overview of what are the primitives, what are the combinations, what are the means of abstraction. Snippet of the DSL implementation, we have a leader macro to handle the square brackets. That way, the editors involved don't need to learn backrouting, saving and stuff. Validating all of the symbols involved. Obviously, there's variable binding. You have a teeny tiny transpile step based on whether we have the old Lisp extractors involved or the new ones. Compiling down into lambdas. And teeny tiny static sanity checking. There's no way to add new operators for the editor, so quite simple. Hard to say the effects yet, given that it's taken a bit longer than anticipated. Partly for all of the UI fiddling, partly for other stuff taking priority during times. Internal launch is right around the corner, but during the whole phase, the non-developer that's worked closely with me on it has made some 150 periods, 1 to 10 lines of code each. Seems to be sort of going fine. In the optimal alternate universe path, this would have been finished last year, paper submission and so on. It's been quite fun, and we're excited to see how it actually plays out with making use of the DSL of handling this sort of complexity. Any questions? In theory we didn't have time, but apparently we do. And the Ravenpack is hiring, so senior Lisper, check the website. Cool.
So I deal with parsing dates occasionally, and it's always a pain in the ass. So
language is ambiguous, it's this sort of weird thing.
Yeah, is this going to be available as a library of some kind?
Very much doubt it.
Ah, dang it.
Sorry.
Yes, over there.
Could you go back to the example of the actual DSL being used?
The UI, this one.
Probably, yeah. So your user has done 150 odd of these things in the top
Yep.
left-hand corner.
Yeah, exactly. At the start was sort of, ooh, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? And then now it's like, stuff isn't behaving like it's supposed to here. Check if things are wrong. Thank you.
Just a Boolean evaluation, or are you doing probabilities of the kind the afternoon may start beginning at 1 p.m. or at 2 p.m. or stuff like that?
Repeat the question for me.
The question is if this is some sort of Boolean thing, if there's probabilities involved. No, it extracts something definite, yeah.
So this is like a web scraper or sort that.
No, this is part of the question is if this is a web scraper of some sort. No, it's sort of embedded in the whole read back product of extracting structured data from the text.
So the slide suggests that you spent like 3 to 6 months developing the DSL.
No, implementing the main.
Question.
Right, sorry.
That wasn't the question.
Slide suggests that it took.
Repeat the comment.
One moment, just finding it. There we go. Slide suggests it took about 3 months to implement the DSL. No, it took basically a month. It's sort of restraining down the Lisp, avoiding stuff that's errant, simplifying, improving feedback, and framing the whole thing that's relevant for the user instead of as general developers.
Okay, because my actual question is going to be, how did you convince management that this would be worthwhile effort? Now repeat that question, please.
How did you convince management that it would be a worthwhile effort? It just started. No, I can't remember. Sorry. Sort of. It was actually prompted by management because they were coming like, "Hey, we've solved these other problems where the workflow is going much smoother now that we have various other automation tools in place. What can we do for periods?" So lucky.
Convince them. Yes. Anything else? All right, thanks again.